Hello. I recently drove along a street where I used to live, and I turned my head to look at my old house, and I was shocked to see that it had been demolished. I drove back a couple of weeks later and saw that work on constructing a new house at that site was well underway. Now, I thought back to the time when I'd lived in that house. Some of my memories were so clear, and others, they were as patchy as the roof on that old garage. You know, memory is like that. Although it can feel very stable and reliable to us, there can actually be quite a bit of instability in what we record in our mind's eye. And it's not just a case of memories eroding or naturally fading away over time. Our memories can undergo some dramatic alterations, not unlike a house being leveled to the ground and then completely rebuilt. Maybe you've had the experience of going back to your childhood home, finding that some of the things there are not at all as you remembered they were. If you just take a second now and bring to mind an image of your childhood home, take your focus right inside the house and into the kitchen and see the kitchen window. What color is the windowsill? Are there objects on it? Are you sure? Does it matter? Now, my research is centered in the realm of eyewitness testimony, a place where it really does matter to get it right in remembering. But despite a witness's best effort to bring forward that accurate picture, they might have a hard time doing so. There are distorting influences that can creep in and bias what a witness brings to mind. Those profound changes can be quite incredible, and sometimes the most subtle influences can be the most powerful. Consider the power in a single word. In one study, witnesses to a traffic collision were asked about the two cars that either hit or smashed. Using that word smashed caused witnesses to generate a memory of a faster-paced, more destructive impact. And although there'd been no broken glass visible on the road at that collision site, witnesses asked about the cars that smashed tended to misremember having seen shattered glass on the road. Now, what really excites my curiosity is understanding circumstances where witnesses are wrong in remembering, yet they feel very confident that they're right. Confidence is so important with regard to eyewitness testimony. When a witness is confident, they tend to be trusted and believed. In some of my research, I have had confident 8-year-old children judged as more credible witnesses than adults who lacked confidence. When someone looks at us and speaks right at us with a sense of conviction, unwavering, feeling very confident about what they tell us, our tendency is to trust what they say. Now, I'd like you to think of the time when an eyewitness views a lineup. This can be an incredibly challenging task, and that decision that the witness makes, choosing a photo from that lineup, is huge and can have tremendous consequences. Now let's focus on the time after the witness has made a choice. At this point in time, we've either got an accurate choice of the perpetrator or we've got an inaccurate choice of an innocent person. Does the witness know whether they're right or wrong? Well, they've probably got a feeling about whether they're right or wrong. And this feeling, this sense of confidence is really important. This sense of confidence is going to determine how much stock is put in that witness's testimony. But confidence is not the best thing to cue on necessarily. Confidence is vulnerable to distorting influences. You can have a witness who views that lineup and makes an identification and feels maybe pretty confident that they're right. And then as time marches forward, that same witness comes to feel increasingly certain that they're right. How does that happen? A lot of this boils down to the influence that social influence can have here. Social influence, the impact of other people, and how that can shape accuracy and confidence. What can happen is the witness views the lineup, makes their choice, and the confidence is rising, but accuracy is not rising along with it. So you have a situation that's really quite precarious. On the surface, it looks like you've got a great situation. Witness is very confident, you want to trust what they're telling you, then you dig beneath the surface and you find all kinds of inaccuracy in the testimony. What is going on here? Where do we get this misalignment between accuracy and confidence? I mentioned that word social influence. This can be incredibly important in gaining some understanding here. In one study that I did, I had participants show up 2 at a time, and while they were waiting there for the researcher to arrive, we surprised them. We had an accomplice burst into the room, grab a piece of equipment, and run out. And then afterward, we showed these witnesses a photo lineup and asked them to try to identify the thief. Now, we stacked the deck against the witnesses. They got only a quick glimpse of the thief, and the photo lineup that we showed them never contained the thief's picture. So any choice from this lineup is going to be a wrong choice. Nevertheless, nearly everyone made a choice from that photo lineup. So now we've got this big collection of inaccurate witnesses. We asked them, how confident do you feel about that choice that you made? And we got a range of responses. Some witnesses reported feeling, I'm kind of confident. If they had to quantify it, they'd say maybe a 4, 5, or 6 out of 10. And other witnesses reporting that they were extremely confident. They'd go as far as to say, I'm a 9 or a 10 out of 10 in my certainty. Now, we found that what differentiated those witnesses who were not very confident from the witnesses who were extremely confident was what we told them after they made their identification. Witnesses who were extremely confident, after they made a choice from that lineup, we said, now that's the person the other witness chose. That simple piece of information, learning that someone else agreed with them, sent witnesses' confidence spiraling up. Now, this notion that we feel more confident when other people agree with us is probably something we're all familiar with. Imagine yourself heading out Sunday morning, you're going to catch the bus, standing at the bus stop and with this nagging sense of uncertainty as to whether that bus is actually running on a Sunday. And then as other people show up and stand beside you at the bus stop, you relax and trust that the bus is coming. We don't naturally go to a place of thinking, we must all be wrong. Now, in the world of eyewitness testimony, the rising confidence has an effect. The rising confidence, research has shown, causes witnesses to start shifting their recollections. And the witnesses where the confidence is rising are now witnesses who feel that they had a better view. They were paying better attention. They had a better chance to see the culprit's face. In fact, in some of our research, it was these pumped up confidence witnesses who reported the culprit's eye color when that wasn't visible. So this rising confidence, it's basically like kickstarting a big memory reconstruction project. To the witness, the memory feels sharper, clearer, more detailed, but in fact, that memory is no more accurate than what it was before confidence started rising. So is there anything that we can do? Is there an antidote? Can we create some shield from these influences? I want to tell you about another research project that I did to give some light on this question. In this particular study, we had 2 roles in the study, witnesses and investigators. And our participants came into the study. The participants were volunteers from the community. They were slotted into one of these 2 roles. Let's assume you're a participant in the study. This half of the room, here's our witnesses. This half of the room, here's our investigators. Witnesses, we'd send you out of the room to go and watch a crime video. Investigators, you would stay here, and I would give you a lineup briefing. Lineup briefing basically means I'm going to show you a photo lineup, I'm going to let you know which person in the lineup was the perpetrator, and I will tell you that your witness is coming back in, you're going to show them this lineup, but I want you to not give them any feedback. Do not let them know whether they're right or whether they're wrong. When we did this research, our investigators did a great job on this task. No problem in staying silent after the witness made a choice from the lineup. But how do you account for this? Our witnesses, those who made that correct choice from the lineup, were much more confident than the witnesses who made the wrong choice. Well, could it be that accuracy is driving the confidence up? In this study, absolutely not. In this study, we did it again. Never gave the witnesses a chance to get it right. We never included the culprit's photo in that photo lineup. But we led the investigators to believe that that photo was there. So we have this big collection of inaccurate witnesses. The difference is some witnesses have an investigator who believes they're accurate. Other witnesses have an investigator who believes they're inaccurate. What effect does that have? Well, we videotaped every pair of witness and investigator, and we looked at those tapes, and we saw some very subtle influences on the part of the investigators. Things like, when the investigator believed the witness was right, they tended to maintain eye contact as they asked the witness to state how confident they were. When the investigator believed the witness was inaccurate, they tended to look down or look away. Subtle but powerful. And when we took this study a step forward and had the investigators question the witnesses about that crime video they'd seen, we saw more of this kind of influence, subtle but powerful. Things like when the investigator thought the witness was right, they did things while the witness spoke. They nodded, they smiled, they maintained eye contact. And in response, the witnesses became very confident as they told about the crime video they'd seen. Their report became very compelling. Now remember, all of these witnesses are inaccurate. There's no basis to have a compelling, credible testimony there from accuracy. Yet the investigators' beliefs are effectively constructing the witness's credibility, creating stories that are much more compelling because of the power of that belief. Now, in the real world, there are numerous tragic cases where eyewitness error has been a huge factor in sending an innocent person to prison. In the process of trying to pull a witness's memory forward, it can be incredibly difficult to not distort it or distort the witness's credibility in the process. Now, I'd like you to think back to that story I shared earlier about my old house being leveled and then rebuilt. If you think back to the picture I showed you of the house under construction, take the picture to your mind, and what do you see there in the front left-hand side? Is it a wheelbarrow, a porta potty, or a stack of cement blocks? You can see that it's actually none of those things. But did my question get you to start imagining that one of those objects was in the picture? What if the person sitting beside you had turned to you and said they were absolutely sure it was a wheelbarrow? Now, memory, because of its dynamic, elastic quality, it's vulnerable to social influence. In our day-to-day living, this social influence can be fabulous. Sounding board for ideas, great conversations, fabulous input to forming our opinions and beliefs. But in the realm of eyewitness testimony, we need to be very wary of this influence. Thank you.